There was one night that I was just like completely paralyzed. I just had so much fear in my heart that there was no way I could get that soul light out to send that love, to get them to sort of shift and move off. And so I called in Archangel Michael and I begged. I was like, please, I need help with this. It's too much. I can't get rid of them. They're coming through thick and fast, and I like need your help. And I had my eyes open. I was fully conscious, like in my bed, and I literally saw his sword from the corner of my room just flash out and just literally cut in the exact area that I was feeling this being that was terrorizing me. And he just slashed down and it was gone. I felt absolute peace after that point, like that.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to First Contact. Today we have a really wonderful guest who I have a very close connection with. So I'm actually very excited to bring on the show today, Zoë Saville Wood. Now, Zoë is a galactic mentor. She helps people connect. She's also been a student of mine for many years and has definitely been doing the work for a long, long time. So I think we're going to have a really fantastic conversation today, Zoë, because I think we'll be able to go quite deep in the topic of contact and galactic consciousness. So thank you.
Yes, all the juicy things.
Yeah, of course. So Zoë, just to contextualize this, tell us about your journey. I mean, there was a point in your life where you didn't even believe any of this stuff. So talk us through that journey a little bit about how you got started to where you are now.
Okay, I'm going to try and be as concise as I can. As most people know, there's so many elements that go into your spiritual journey. So, and you uncover more the more you go through your journey, the more you uncover about your beginnings. So, yes, I come from a family who's not particularly religious, not spiritual at all. If it wasn't stated by science, then it doesn't exist pretty much, or if you can't see it with your own eyes, it's not there. So I very much grew up in an environment where the experiences that I was having had no sounding board. What I was experiencing, I shut down and ignored, and basically like convinced or brainwashed myself just through repetitive thought that none of this was real. It wasn't until I moved to Australia from New Zealand and I felt drawn to go to a yoga class. And I didn't even know what yoga was at the time, but I went to this class. I was in this tiny little town in Victoria, and I went to this yoga class, and it ended up being the most potent experience, I guess, of my journey to that point. The teacher was not teaching us yoga, though that's what she was calling it. She was teaching us a blend of modalities that I now realize was a mix of, certainly yoga practices, but also breath work. She was doing a lot of meditation as well. I had my first out of body experience in her class, and that's when I sort of, I guess, opened the door to remembering there was more to my existence than just my 9-to-5 job and, starting a family and doing that sort of thing. So really, once I had that out of body experience where I was in a class and we had just finished some breath work, she had led us through a mini meditation and we were sitting there just in silence, and I felt my consciousness lift out of my body. So I now understand this as, some people call it astral travel, some people call it remote viewing, but essentially my consciousness lifted above my physical form, and I was watching everyone with precise detail from the rafters in the roof. I could see the people sitting behind me with their eyes closed. I had my eyes closed. I could see people sitting beside me, the teacher in front of me, like every single detail, and I was seeing it from outside of my body. So that was really, I guess, what yeah, like I say, opened that door. And then from there, I moved to Perth from Victoria, and I was, having a conversation with a friend. And she said, look, I've got this meditation teacher. I really want you to come to one of her classes. It happened to be Eesha. And so I went to this meditation and I thought to myself, these people are mad. I'm mad. Like, what is this? I can't come to this. This is like beyond anything I've ever known and anything I think I don't really want to know. And so I questioned whether I wanted to come back. But it was like within a week, my body, like my soul, was telling me, like, no, you need to go back. You need to keep going. And so when I went consistently, that's when I started realizing that Eesha had all the language for what it was that I was experiencing. Eesha had the same experiences. And so we really had this beautiful community that I could then step into, people who understood and could relate. And I had this sounding board for what it was that I was experiencing through my life. And that was just so priceless. That really helped me in terms of putting the experiences that I was having into fact for myself, so my own truth. And from there, I've learned so much through this practice, through connecting with star family, with extraterrestrials, with energy itself. I've since learned that the reason I was so shut down, and it makes sense, like I know why I was trying to convince myself when I was younger that what I was experiencing wasn't real, is because I was having all these energies coming to me, all the star family coming to check up and see what I was doing, and my little tiny 5-year-old brain couldn't work out, like, sorry, who are you? You look strange. Why are you standing outside my window? Please don't come inside. And so I was very much in a state of fear. And I really blocked myself after all of it. And it really wasn't until I did that yoga class and then eventually sat down in that meditation circle with you, Eesha, that I opened myself to finally accepting it.
What a journey, hey. I mean, I think so many people can relate to having experiences in childhood, feeling confused, overwhelmed, not knowing what it is, turning it off until later in their adult life, and then going, oh, maybe I should go back and have a look at this. And I mean, it has been so beautiful watching your journey unfold. And now if we fast forward to where you are today, you're a mentor, you're teaching people. Some of your students are having amazing experiences, awakening. So you're doing some real powerful work. Could you tell us, who are some of the beings that you've connected with and that you work with for your facilitation work?
There's no limit, there's no limit. Everyone steps in whenever their specific unique frequency is required. So if I was, pulling sort of like energies out of the hat, like more recent ones, I did a 7/7 activation with Yamoja, the Yoruban goddess of the ocean. And so there's the sort of gods and goddesses, the energy behind those mythological beings that does exist as energy that we connect through. There's star family themselves, and like the Galactic Federation with Ashtar, and any of the star races. Like there's not one that I've heard of yet that I haven't had a connection with. I know that there's so many out there, and by no means am I saying that I've connected with them all, but just the modern current star beings and star races that I've heard of. I've had experiences through my meditations with all of them thus far. So Andromedans, Venusians, Syrians, Pleiadians, Illyrians, star beings recently as well, with all the solar flares. The blue avians were really beautiful last year for me. Honestly, the Orions come through a lot, and that was a big part of my journey as well, was the discernment piece, working through how do I know what energies I'm connecting with are safe for me to do so, or are that I feel safe connecting with. At the start, it's quite overwhelming. The minute you open that door, everything floods through. So being able to learn that discernment piece and work out, okay, so this frequency is one that I would like to connect with, therefore I will. This frequency feels a bit sticky, a bit icky, doesn't feel like it's a, what would you say, like heart-led connection, then I'm just going to say no to you. And in that whole process of learning that, that power that we hold in ourselves, that's so unfathomable at the beginning, that you actually hold exactly the same power, exactly the same energy. And to realize that, you just end up connecting with everything. Everything becomes available.
Do you have a specific process or a tool that you like to use that helps you discern if you're not sure?
Yes, actually. And it started with your teachings when I was doing my training with you. So when discerning, I encourage my students to use the same practice, and we shine light out from our heart center. That light is actually a bit of blend of both. What I'm starting to understand is, like, yes, it's coming from the heart center, but it has this soul presence, this soul frequency that releases from your heart center, if that makes sense. And then you're shining that light out over the being that's presenting itself to you. Obviously, not everyone is seeing things. A lot of people are feeling them. So same thing, it's just that intention of sending that light out from your heart center, allowing it to wash over the being. And if that love is returned, if you feel that feeling of like a warm embrace of, you know, friendship, camaraderie, like just part of being with that being, if that makes sense, then totally fine to connect with. That is an energy that's there to support you. There's no ulterior motives. However, if you're not receiving that in return, it's just a one-way street where, you know, you're sending out, but they're not giving anything back. I think that's really an indication of when you are meeting with a being that's there just to, for their own purposes, whether that's to steer you on a different course, or, you know, remove some of your, well, not remove, but take some of your energy for their benefit. Then yeah, so that's really where the discernment piece comes in, being able to determine, okay, who I'm connecting with here isn't who they say they are, or isn't really a being with a frequency that I want to hold, and this person is, and so I'm going to continue with them.
Is there a general rule of thumb around certain races where you can go, okay, you know what, they're from this race, so I, as a general rule, feel pretty safe connecting with them?
You know what? It's so interesting. I encourage my students to discern, but eventually over time, what happens is you do get sort of a, I would almost say it's like instinctual sense of whether a frequency is true or not. And so over time, as you're connecting with these beings and you're developing your energetic relationship with them, it's like your body begins to learn their frequency, begins to filter through those like light codes and things, so that you really do feel safe in their presence. And that's usually when I'm like, it's totally fine, you probably don't need to discern in that instance, but it comes with time, it comes with practice. And there's always those times where you think, oh, I've got this down, like I don't need to worry about discernment anymore, like it's all good. It's usually around the piece when you realize that they can't really do anything to you without your permission. So once you've learned that actually I hold the power and no one can really touch me unless I say so, you kind of think, oh, I probably don't need discernment anymore. But that's usually when I find it's like that extra layer of initiation, where it's like, actually occasionally someone will pop in and you think, something's off about you, like you just don't seem right, there's something a bit shady, and you discern, and then you realize, oh, okay, this is a frequency that I haven't discerned, and it's certainly not one that I want to be connecting with. So then, yeah, you just ask them to leave, and they do so, thankfully.
Is there a generalization though that you can make across the races, or do you have to go being by being? Like, say for example, you're connecting with the Pleiadian. Can you assume that all Pleiadians are safe, or do you still have to go being by being to figure it out?
I still encourage being by being. And the reason I say that is energy. So they can project themselves or present themselves in a way that we receive and visualize differently to what they actually are. So really, when we say that we're seeing something, what we're seeing is actually our human brain making a reference from all of our previous experiences of, okay, this is what I think this looks like. but it's not actually what it looks like. So I do encourage everyone to discern each being. You might have someone who presents themselves as, I don't know, let's say Archangel Michael, and then you realize, oh, hang on, there's something quite odd about this being. And then you realize later, oh, even though they look like Archangel Michael, that frequency just isn't correct. And it's been a portrayal, like almost a facade of who you thought the being was. So I would still encourage everyone to discern. And over time, it really takes nothing. Like I say, you get used to the frequencies. It's like a quick check-in now, as opposed to it being this process of sending light out. It's a very quick check-in on frequency now. It evolves where it just becomes second nature. But yeah, essentially, I would encourage everyone to be checking who they're connecting with visually.
I think for a lot of people who are just starting out, that discernment piece is probably one of the biggest fears. And I've spoken to a lot of people, star seeds, even in the ufology community, and people come back to me and say, "Oh no, I don't want to try that. It's too much." They'd rather just be on the sidelines a little bit and let everyone else do the actual connecting. And I see this actually, interestingly, especially so on the ufology end of the spectrum and the disclosure end of the spectrum, where people are happy to do the nuts and bolts of research and study the cases. But when I go to them and say, but you can actually connect, they often come back with, oh no, thanks, I don't really feel like doing that. And I actually experienced this at Contact in the Desert I went to recently. And I was, chatting with some of the guests over lunch and dinner. And I say to them, well, why are you here? And they say, oh, I'm really curious about this and I believe in it. And I say, well, what if I could teach you how to do it? And they would reject the offer. So then I asked them why, like, why, I mean, you've come all the way to this event, you've come and, you put all this money in to learn about the ETs. I'm telling you, you can talk to them yourself and you're saying you don't want to. So I got to ask, what's the deal? And some of them are quite honest with me and they said, well, it just feels too scary. What if they're not benevolent? What if they do something to me? What if they abduct me? So what advice can you give to people who might be on that fence and knowing that not every single being is love and light? How can you encourage people to move forward with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting chills talking about it because that was really my fear as well. Like, I can completely understand, and I've been in those shoes of, yeah, just the fear of what if. But my advice for that is really, I mean, in the same breath, if we live in a dualistic dimension and you think, okay, we've got non-benevolent beings, then obviously we have benevolent beings as well. So if you feel like there's star beings that can come through into the 3D and do physical harm to you, then would it not follow that you would have benevolent beings who can do the same in order to protect you?
Right. You mean
So I
heal us? Like some of them can harm us and others can heal us. Is that what you mean?
Exactly, but not even in like a post something's happened and now I'm being healed. There's a huge amount of energy that we obviously don't see in our realm. There's um for example, like when we are setting space right before we do meditation, there's energetic grids that are placed on the space so that you're kept in this high frequency energetic container. When we talk about frequency, it's doesn't match when there's a low vibrational frequency and a high vibrational frequency. So by putting yourself into those containers where you're sitting in a higher vibrational frequency, those lower vibrational frequencies can't even enter. Like, that's not how it works. And what happens is a lot of people think, oh, but I was in a meditation circle and I felt something that didn't feel nice. A lot of the time that's beings that are benevolent, but they just hold so much energy and power that your own energy is like, whoa, that's a lot. Like, I don't know how to handle that. Or it's that reference back to your childhood when you did have beings coming to visit you and you thought, what the heck is that? Like, that doesn't look human. I don't want that around me. And so your energy contracts with that sort of an initial experience, but it's not always the case. And I mean, I haven't had any experiences myself that have been physically negative at all. And I can tell you that I've had every fear under the sun about it. Um, and I understand that people have very real experiences with this, so I don't want to disregard that. But my belief is that we have chosen certain, let's say, abilities, I guess, for this lifetime, for our soul to express in this lifetime. And each one is this opportunity to learn more about ourselves, what we're capable of, what this world is like, etc. So when someone is having a negative experience to something, I would almost say like it's showing you the way. Like this is telling you that there is something here for you to look at. So by turning away from it, it's not going to make it go away. In fact, it's only going to keep coming. Like that's my experience of it. So when we actually turn to it with the tools that we know we have to keep us feeling safe and protected, and with the star family and the beings and the ascended masters and the angels, all those energetic beings who are there for our highest good, you face that stuff and then you look back and you go, huh, I actually got through that and nothing happened. I'm all good.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean. It's such an interesting one to talk people through, but again, it's something that I leave to people to make the choice themselves. I mean, if I've done it, then I know you can do it, but it's up to you. You have the choice to step into that and go, you know what, I am ready to face this. And I trust that you know how to keep me safe in doing it. And yeah, I guess that's why, I look on my time in your training with so much gratitude. Is like those practices really gave me that courage. They really gave me that experience of, hey, like there's actually nothing these beings can do to me. I hold the power. Like it's all in me. So yeah, that's just like a invaluable lesson. Like there's no price you can put on that.
That's so beautiful. And I think people who might be on the fence a little bit will find that message very inspiring, because I think the other aspect is people think they have to go through it alone,
Mm,
and I mean, I say this all the time. Like if I was gonna, deadlift 100 kilos, I'd be hiring a coach. I wouldn't be doing that on my own. So why isn't it the same with spiritual training? Of course, you learnt with me, and now you're training a lot of other people as well in your community. And I think it's important to recognize that it's okay to get help. It's okay to have a community of people where you can learn and grow, instead of just assuming that because it's spiritual, it has to be all by yourself. I think there's a bit of stigma around that too. People say that, spiritual work is inner work, which is true. Absolutely. At the end of the day, the only person who's going to walk your path is you. But hey, I'd rather do it with my friends and family than without, and my mentors
absolutely.
and my community and all these amazing people. So I think, yeah, it's good to just remind people there's a lot of support out there. There are people out there who have walked the path before you. And so if you're feeling a bit scared, if you're feeling a bit shy or nervous or overwhelmed or confused, go and find someone who's been through the journey.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so sorry, I want to cross over a little bit now into the galactic disclosure side of things. Now, I know you also communicate with the Galactic Federation. Do you think we are getting closer towards that point where there is going to be some level of physical contact coming through soon?
Ugh. I mean, I think it's already happening. I think we already are having physical contact. I just don't think it's widely known. Like, I just don't think, like you say, the disclosure's not there. I just don't think it's been acknowledged yet. But,
Right.
there's definitely, like, I've had my experiences out and about. I know you've had your experiences out and about. There's plenty of people I know who are having physical experiences in the 3D, like out and about. But I, I'm really, I don't follow a lot of it, to be fair. The
Yeah.
reason I don't do this is because I actually like connecting through what's coming through my channel. So I like, again, it's this, you can tell from like my background, this is me discerning things for myself. So I don't really like do a lot of research. I don't read a lot on these topics. My partner does. He's well into it. He loves it. But I don't really go into it all that much. He occasionally tells me things, and I think, okay, that's very confirming for what I've experienced in my meditations. But um, I don't do a lot of research there. So when I think about, is it going to happen soon? I'm really not sure how much has been disclosed thus far. Like, I
Right. So you don't really know what's happening on the media side of things, but I mean, has Ashtar or any of the Galactic Council said anything to you about this?
I mean, I get glimpses of things. I've been in settings where there's meetings taking place, discussions being had. It's really interesting because at this point in my journey, I'm finding myself, like, my consciousness split across multiple outcomes, like multiple timelines, if that makes it easy to understand. But so when I'm like getting these glimpses of information and I can feel which like timeline I'm on or which outcome I'm on based on the information that I'm receiving, but it takes me a long time to churn through and be like, okay, well, what is in alignment, what's like, what frequency is coming through in this specific reality. So when I've been in those circles, a lot of the talk has been around, just trying to step back into it, but a lot of the talk has been around where, I just need to connect in for a second. Sorry, Eesha. Don't think I'm allowed to say what I've seen. Sorry. Yeah, that's why I'm being blocked there. I personally want it to happen. I want there to be disclosure. I want people to know that this is outside of us, that these beings exist, that there's already communication taking place, there's trade taking place. But the reason I want that is so that everyone can kind of come on board. Like, that's really my intention for that, is that everyone can come on board and then we can start, being open about it.
Yeah, beautiful. One of the things that they have allowed me to share is the importance of the vision. Not necessarily the specifics around what they're doing behind the scenes, but they keep telling me that the more of us that focus on that 2027 vision, the more likely we are going to land on their outcome. Like as you said, there's multiple potentials in the timeline, but we as human beings have the conscious choice to co-create whichever timeline we desire. And so if we work together to bring a level of convergence to that open, peaceful contact by 2027, we can land on that as the preferred outcome. Have they said anything to you on that regard?
Not specific. Well, I mean, in terms of understanding that by all of us drawing our attention to it, that we then like physically manifest it in our reality quicker or sooner, if you want to look at it that way, yes. But no, not in those specific words. Like, I haven't received any like specific dates myself, but definitely in terms of us all becoming aware. And in that, I feel like there's this internal piece that has to happen. It can't just be a case of like, oh, we all agree that now there's aliens. It's actually this internal piece that has to happen where we're actually all open to being part of that macrosm, that sort of bigger picture. And in that internal opening, I think that's when that flows through. That's sort of like the I guess vision that I've been shown. But there's definitely a lot of work they're doing. The activations that I do on the intergalactic gateway, so like the 7-7, the 8-8-8, or the 9-9s, whenever we're doing that sort of like planetary work and I'm stepping out with either the group that I'm with, or if I'm doing it myself and I'm going up with star family above the earth, there's just like, it's like there's like legions of angels going out across the, like Earth's light grid. There's like star beings left, right, and center. There's ships everywhere. Like, there's just so much going on that I have no doubt that there's a lot that they're doing behind the scenes already, things that we don't even need to know about. But yeah, it will be really nice when we do get to just all accept that, yeah, this is our universe, this is the cosmos, this is what we all are connected to.
Yeah, beautiful. You did mention earlier that you had quite a strong connection with the Orions, and I know that the Orion beings are very much involved in the overseeing of the planetary timelines, the keeping of the divine order. What can you tell us about them and the connection that you've had with them?
Ah. Yes. So it's really interesting. The Orions were the first star race to come through for me. Whether that's my own connections is yet to be seen for me. But they came through really strongly with that discernment piece because, as you know, the Orions have such an eclectic mix of star races. They really are like a blend of everything. And in that, the frequency can get both high and low, but kind of murky. And so I'm sorry, Eesha, I think I forgot your question.
That's okay. It's just what you can share about them. Like I know for
Oh,
me, when
that's right.
I connect with the Orions, it is very much about they're quite connected actually. They go hand in hand with the Order of Melchizedek and working with the timelines. They tend to have a very big picture vision. So I'm curious about anything that you can share from their perspective, anything you can tell us about them.
Just really my experience with the Orions has been I've had very benevolent beings that have supported me on my journey. And with that, the sort of like added element of understanding what's happening outside of Earth, I find the Orions are the beings that really like channel that energy through for me. So they're quite happy to share like what's happening in the next couple of dimensions up. But as like a like as star beings, like I say, there's this, I wouldn't say dramatic, but there is this duality that they experience as well within their own race of the lower vibrational beings and the higher vibrational beings. And so what I know of the Orions is very much like this, I don't know how to put it into words, it's like they're there to guide you through that discernment piece so that you can grasp what it is that they're then sharing with you about what's going on in their dimension, like what's happening in their realm. That's really been the experience that I've had with them. And as beings, they're very, I feel like almost like all the movies that we have around like aliens and things come from the Orions. Like it's like the Orions really have that story behind them. There's things happening that aren't particularly nice. There's things happening that are, you know, very heroic, very like self-sacrificing, and they really hold that, I guess, balance of both. And so when you're connecting with them, you might learn how to discern between the lower and then the higher. And then once you start connecting with the higher, that's when you start filtering through all this information about, you know, like what they've experienced in their timelines and how that's really the knowledge that they're sharing with us for ours. Does that help?
Yeah, yeah. It was interesting to hear your experience, because people do have very different experiences, even within the same race. Like what you're describing with the Orions is quite different to the experience I've had with the Orions, but that's because when I connect with the Orions, we're usually discussing planetary timelines. So, so it's interesting to hear the vastness in people's experiences, and particularly if you do have soul aspects there, then perhaps, a lot of people talk about the Orion Wars and some of the things that have happened there. Now, I don't have a lot of personal experience with that because I don't feel like I've had much to do with it. But for me, I'm more connected with on the Lyran side of things, So I think everybody has a different experience that they connect in with depending on their soul journey. So when you're connecting in with some of these galactic beings, do you see them more as just like a generalized race, or could you give us, for example, a name of one of the beings and a very specific being that you've connected with?
From like any star being.
Yeah, any. Like, do you have that level of specificity with any of them?
Yeah, I mean, you mean like a singular name, like the name of a specific being, but not part of, like not the race?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, right. Um,
And you mentioned Ashtar. That's one. I mean, that's a
yeah,
big.
yeah. And so for me, I'm very visual. I don't like, that's my main sense. So I see things, I'm shown. So when I'm connecting with the energies, they aren't speaking to me. They do occasionally, but it's short, sharp. It's usually like a direction. It's if I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, or, you know, they're trying to like just snap me out of something really quickly. Then I'll hear something, someone talking to me, and it'd be a big stop or something. But there's no conversation for me like there is with you and I now. It's all visual. So when I'm connecting with the beings, I'm seeing them. I don't communicate with them through, how do I describe this? I don't communicate with them through spoken word. I communicate with them through how I see them, and then they show me. It's almost like a knowing. They show me in through my third eye, like what needs to happen, if that makes sense. So for example, if I was connecting with, and it's interesting you say that, the first Orion being that I connected with calls himself Orion, but basically he's this giant lion from, you know how, what's the constellation with Orion's belt on it? I can't think of it right now. I think we just call him Orion. Anyway, so the first Orion being I connected with came through, and I asked him his name, and he said to me, Orion. But it's not that he says it to me, it's that it comes through my third eye, like I know it, if that makes sense. And then in that, I asked, you know, like, is that the star system you're from? Like, are you an Orion being from the Orion constellation? And he was like, no, that's my name. So I just have to trust that. Like, I've done my discernment piece. I know that the frequency is high vibrational, and so I just have to trust whatever information they're willing to give me through this almost knowing. And then visually, when we're on journeys, they just show me. So they'll lead me down a path, they'll walk me through the spaceship, they'll take me into this room, you know, they'll gesture towards what I need to do. It's not a case of like speaking it to me. And then it's usually later on, it's usually actually when I'm not connecting in, that when I'm just, my brain goes into diffuse mode, that's usually when like the information trickles down. And again, it's just a knowing. It's like, oh, that explains what I was pondering about last week with this, and that explains why, you know, we have this concept of time or whatever. It all just sort of flows in from there and fills the gaps. So it's not that I'm having like a face-to-face conversation where I get to like ask questions and get a lot of answers straight off the bat. It sometimes takes time, once I've connected with a being a few times and have that relationship with them, that they'll then give me little bits and pieces like that.
Beautiful. So you mentioned going on the starships.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I mean, they're so like, it's amazing. Each one is so different. Like, there are times I've been on one where it does feel more like the typical Hollywood spaceship, where it's almost like a metallic-y kind of material. There's other times I've been on spaceships where they're more of a light ship, and it just sort of like molds to whatever you need it to be. Things just appear from like nowhere. There's others that feel very like almost like a hologram, where they're showing you a specific image. So it's almost like you get to experience it as if you were like here in this world, like sitting in this chair. It's like very physical material, but it's really interesting. Each one is so different. And yeah, what I find on each of them that I connect with, there's no specific like one race of being. There's often a mix. And I think that's what I've gathered from, you know, Ashtar with the Galactic Federation, is that it very much is like and when I say universal, I mean like multidimensional, universal, like collective of beings who are all here to help with this work. And so, yeah, it's always fascinating to me when you're on a ship and you see a new being and you're just like, I haven't seen you. And then you sort of take note of what they look like. And then it might be something like, you know, you have a meditation. One of my students might mention, oh, I've, you know, connected with this being and they've told me that this is who they are. And you think, me too. So now I know, like, all these little synchronicities. Yeah.
Do you think sometimes you connect with the beings because of your students?
Oh, absolutely. Like, yes.
Like you're just the channel, right? And then
Yeah.
comes in and they have that connection, then that being will come to you and kind of tap you on the shoulder and be like, hey, this is who I am. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I say this to my students all the time, and they all know as well when they show up for a class. There's no plan. We're not, it hasn't been planned. I haven't sat there and thought, this is what the journey is going to be. This is where we'll end up. No, it's very much we just sit, we connect in, and the energies that need to come through at that particular time for whatever particular reason they come through, and that's what we work through together. Usually as a group we're doing the journey as a group, but again people can have their own unique experiences within that. And what I love, once people find their feet, is they've got that confidence and they know that discernment piece. I watch them, they just run off on a completely different journey, and then they meet us back at the end and they've had this unique experience purely for their soul. We all have our own individual connections. And so, yeah, when people come into group, it's amazing what beings show up for each person. It's really amazing.
Mm. I had an experience like that with the Hathors recently, and
Mm,
one of my clients has a strong connection to them, and I'd never connected with them up until this person came into our galactic community, and suddenly the Hathors are everywhere. And recently, one of our other students, as part of her prac, did an activation on the Hathors, and I thought, what a beautiful convergence in the group. And I'm sure you notice this too, right? It's like we think that we're individuals, but really collectively, there's so much going on that even when we have a group, a community come together, multiple people start receiving those similar transmissions, which makes you really wonder, maybe there's more to the picture, maybe there's more to our energy. There's a reason why maybe your specific clients are coming to you and my specific people are coming to me, because there's a maybe some level of resonance there.
absolutely. Like, I find that to be so true. A lot of students come with the same experiences that I had. I find I don't generally get a student who comes to me with something that I've never experienced in this journey. It's almost like we're guided to one another based on, we're like, oh, that person, I don't know why, but I need to head towards them. I feel like they're going to help me with this. And you know what that feels like, when you're looking for something, something's come up and you're like, I need help with this. And you're looking for someone to help you through that. When you're going through that selection process, there's always someone where you're just like, I just feel like it's this person. I don't know what it is, but it's this person. And I've never gone wrong with that. Like, I've never, either myself or with the students coming into my groups, like I've never had anyone who's like far left and we're far right. It's always like being the perfect, yeah, circumstances to be able to sort of like help and guide one another.
Mm. I find the number one commonality, the common thread through all of my students is they're all connected with the Galactic Federation. That's my thing. Like anyone who comes in. So I wonder if you notice similar, whether it's the same with your students or whether it's like maybe you attract a lot of Orion being like star seeds, or like, do you find similarities like that?
Absolutely. I get a lot of people with angelic connections.
Right.
Archangel Michael was like pivotal for me through the period of fear. Like, just, in fact, Archangel Michael was one of my 3D, like in the physical experiences. So yeah, I have a lot of angelic connections. I've got aspects in the angelic realm as well. And then past life stuff, well, if you think of it as past life stuff, but yeah, I've got a lot of experience through the fall and things like that. So I find a lot of people come to me with angelic connections, and she'll absolutely cringe that I'm saying it, but I even have a student who has such strong angelic connections but just refuses to accept them at the moment. So that's something we're working through. She said to me, look, every time you mention the angels, I thought, oh, I'm probably not coming next week, but she would come, and we're finally working through what that block is for her. But yeah, everyone tends to have angelic connections. Like I say, and as you know, there's so many beings. They all come through. Like, there's no restriction. A lot of people are like, oh, this is my team. But actually, there's not a team. There's everyone. You have access to everyone. And yes, there are like more stronger connections that come through based on like this lifetime for you, what your soul is experiencing, or what your soul has chosen to work through in this lifetime, and that pulls through into previous lives, or you know, times where you've been, you know, different star race yourself. And so then those I guess connections come through quite strongly. But that's not to say that they're your only team, that they're the guides for you. It's like you have access to everyone, and that's what I love seeing, like similar to what you're saying with the Hathors. Like someone comes into a circle and they've got a very strong connection to their Viking roots, and that's maybe not, you know, the gods or goddesses that I connect with on an everyday basis, but the minute they step into that circle and, like you say, you're tapped on the shoulder, that's when you start channeling that through, and then you see everyone else and their connections start coming through with that as well. And it's really beautiful. Like, you know, we really are all connected. There's nothing like this journey to realize that.
I guess that's the beauty of being a channel and a guide, right? Is you do have a wider range that you can connect with these beings, even though they're not necessarily part of your personal team. One interesting thing that happened was, as you started talking about Archangel Michael, this big flash of white light just happened on the screen. So we'll see if that comes out on the recording. I feel like, yeah, I definitely feel like that presence is quite strong. And you mentioned that you had a physical sighting. Could you tell us that story?
Yeah, that was my first physical sighting, was the Archangel Michael sighting. So honestly thought, you know, we always have these doubts. We have these human doubts. We're like, oh, maybe, maybe I'm not sane, but it absolutely happened. And it was sort of right in the time where I was discerning. I had opened this door to energy, to being connected to these beings. And with that came a lot of fear. And with fear, we attract a lot of that same vibration. So I was having a lot of really dark, dense energies coming to me, specifically at night. They always seem to come at night. And based on that childhood experience of, well, actually, I suppose that was my first in-person experience. But when I was younger, I was absolutely petrified because I was seeing star racers standing outside my window at night. I didn't have curtains on that window. It was quite high. It was a 2-story building. And yeah, my parents didn't feel a need to put, weren't close to anyone, didn't feel a need to put a curtain there. And so I was seeing them, and the only reference that I had was these sneak peeks that I'd had of my, you know, when you pretend that you needed to go to the toilet, but really you just didn't want to go to bed. And I had these sneak peeks of my dad watching Mars attacks. And so the only reference I had for these beings that I was seeing, these Orion beings, the Andromedans, the Arcturians, you know, was these Mars attacks beings that come and destroy and, you know, sew your head to a little Chihuahua dog. Like that was the experience that I had. So that was when I really started like closing myself off to it. But that was my physical experience of it. And then coming into my sort of like more recent consciousness, like once I opened that door, all of these like heavy, dense energies started coming. They were like, no, we're quite happy for you not to start connecting. Thanks. We're happy how things are. And there was one night that I was just like completely paralyzed. I just had so much fear in my heart that there was no way I could get that soul light out to send that love, to get them to sort of shift and move off. And so I called in Archangel Michael and I begged. I was like, please, I need help with this. It's too much. I can't get rid of them. They're coming through thick and fast, and I like need your help. And I had my eyes open. I was fully conscious, like in my bed. And I literally saw his sword from the corner of my room just flash out and just literally cut in the exact area that I was feeling this being that was terrorizing me. And he just slashed down and it was gone. I felt absolute peace after that point. Like that low vibrational frequency was just, it had transmuted, it had gone. And I even woke my partner up. I was like, I can't believe I just saw a sword in our room. Like it was, my eyes were open. I didn't have them closed. It wasn't coming through my third eye because I know what that feels like. I was like, it was unreal. I experienced that.
It's quite a powerful experience. You know, one thing that I have noticed is they don't often come through in that way. It seems to be like a as and when necessary.
Mm.
Kind of relating to your experience, the one time that I saw Ashtar like physically, like so tangibly come into my room was when I was running an event in Melbourne a few years ago. We're doing a Trinity activation and the energies were so dense. We were getting attacked like from all angles, you know. And I got woken up at 2 in the morning, like the starship had just landed sort of, I want to say like in parallel, because it was obviously in another dimension. It's like it physically
Mm.
landed on the roof, but it was like in the room. It was like my room and the starship were like together, you know. And Ashtar just walks out, and it was actually scary for me because I'm so used to having the telepathic contact that when he actually came into the room, I was like, "Holy moly, what is this?" And you know, he calmed me down and said, "Don't worry, like it's okay." And in a similar fashion, just like one sweep of the room and just like cleared everything out. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah,
So
it's, you can tell, you know the difference, like you feel it. You're like, well, this isn't me connecting, yeah, like you say, and seeing it in almost like a telepathic way. It's very much in my space, physical 3D. But
mm,
I mean, that's something actually that's been flowing through a lot from like the Galactic Federation, and the Arcturians specifically as well, was they gave me this piece around my concept of time. And I know we all say in the spiritual industry, like, time is just a concept that doesn't exist. And yes, in theory, that is what it's like. But in terms of a human way of thinking, a very linear way of thinking, like that's actually what we need in order to put, you know, pieces together for our human brains to comprehend. And what came through was very much this algorithm, this like mathematical equation that they use in order to be able to do that. And I think it's only because I've had that physical experience, you know, with Archangel Michael and then the star races as well, where I now grasp like how big it is for them to be able to actually step into our 3D realm. And I think this is partially why, like, I certainly haven't received days, but I think this is partially why, like, in the galactic community where we're waiting for this disclosure, we're waiting for them to come on land and like show us that you exist, is there's this whole process that has to happen before they can physically do that. It's not just a case of, well, it is in the sense of like time doesn't exist, one and done. But for us, like, and also for like them, there's this, like I say, algorithm, this mathematical process that has to happen through our like dimensional makeup in order for them to pass through each dimension, to come into a lower density, to get that physical matter, that material body, and then for us to be able to, for them to step into the 3D. Like we're quite low on the ladder, like 3D, we're quite low. So there's a lot that has to happen for them to actually step into that physical materialization where we can see them. So yeah, I love that we've had that experience, that we can, you know, share that, and I really want everyone else to have it too.
thank you so much. So it's been such a insightful conversation. And I knew we'd be able to go quite deep today because you hold such a beautiful knowledge base when it comes to the variety of star races, and also not just galactic, but you know, angelic and all the other realms as well. So Zoe, just before we finish up today, how can people find you, and tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help people?
Okay. Um, well, you can find me on my website, so zoesavillewood.com, or on Instagram. I have to warn you, I'm not very active on socials. I try to be, but I'm not. So best case scenario, send me an email, which you can do through my website. But yeah, I run programs for people to connect. That journey that I had, you know, being absolutely trapped in fear, not having a community to share these experiences with, that's really formed the foundation of my business, the foundation of mentoring for others. So the people that I work with are generally people who are interested, want to connect, know there's something more, and want us to start opening that door, but maybe have a lot of fear around it, or just want to learn the right processes in order to be able to do that safely so that they feel really secure in their channel. And then really it goes from there, just help build them up to a point where they're doing it themselves. And at that point, they generally don't need me anymore. They're channeling as much as I am. So yeah, that's usually when they go off and do their things, which has been beautiful to watch. I love seeing my students step into their purpose that way. But yeah, that's, I guess, like I joke on my Instagram that you can call me your galactic guardian, but essentially that feels like my role. Like I'm here to help you step past that fear and walk through it. So yeah, that's how we can get in touch with one another.
That's beautiful. And actually it makes perfect sense. You know, there's so many different roles that I've heard of. So guardians is actually one of them. Guardians, historians, ambassadors. I'm an ambassador, you know, to a T. So we've got an ambassador and a guardian. So thank you, Zoë, for joining me today. And for anyone who wants to connect with Zoë, we'll pop the links in the show notes below. And yeah, give us a like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed today's episode. Share the good word with people, because it's all about making first contact here on the show. Thank you, Zoë, for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me.